Welcome back to Candid Football Conversations, a collaboration between Sports Khabari and Arunfoot. My name is Arunava Chaudhuri, and I'm very, very happy and delighted to have a very special guest with us today, Tetea Hmar. Tete, who is, amongst other things, the secretary of the Mizoram Football Association, also heads the League Committee of the All India Football Federation, and especially to me, a very, very dear friend, someone who I've seen grow over the years. And thank you very much. And I'm always happy to see what happens in Mizoram football. Tete, if we go back into what you've done, what you've achieved since you came on as secretary of the Mizoram Football Association, are you sometimes yourself surprised that the things have gone the way that they've gone, that Mizoram has risen to be amongst the states in India which lead when it comes to football in India these days?
Hi, Arun. Yeah, the belief was always there. The belief was always there. But yeah, I mean, sometimes when I look back, it's surprising that we have achieved a lot in such a short duration. I always believe in the talents of the Mizo youth and also the Mizo people in general when it comes to football. But India is such a vast country with a huge experience in different in different sports, and I did believe that we had the potential to become one of the best in the country, but I was like thinking that it could take time. But our success story says that everything happened within a decade. Having said this, long way to go, long way to go.
But you've come a long way. If I'm right, 2011 is when you were elected as secretary of the Mizoram Football Association. 2012 was the start of the Mizoram Premier League, especially with the help of Zunet, of our friends Tato and Mapuya. How important was that in regard to transforming club football in Mizoram?
See, in Mizoram, one of the most, I will say that not most, one of the huge challenges which we faced those days was the lack of infrastructure, lack of proper football structure, and yes, we did have a kind of a league which practically was a tournament. Uh, there were some Mizo players who played outside Mizoram who done well in the National Football League back then. That was days before the ILA. When we look at them, we feel that the Mizo talents are ready to be at the same level with the other top Indian footballers. But those players who happen to play in the National Football League, uh, 90% of them graduated from Tata Football Academy. And we believe, I mean, there was a thinking that, in order to success in Indian football, you have to go through that ladder, the Tata Football Academy or some other residential academy outside the state. But when I became the secretary in 2011, me and my colleagues, we sat together and we thought that, if we provide them a good platform in the way of a proper structured league, our players, our local players could be at the same level with the other Indian players. For that, we need a league. Then Zonet came in with all the sponsor, with all the backup as a partnership. In fact, we started all this. Zonet TV has done a lot for the promotion of the, club football in Mizoram. And once we started the Mizoram Premier League back into 2012, we started believing that, with round the year training, more structured kind of, training system, uh, more game time. It really helped the players. And if you look at the current, I will say that ISL and the ILA, most of our players graduated from the Mizoram Premier League.
And that's a great thing to see, that a league which is just 10, 11 years old, which had a forced pandemic break as well, has achieved so much. How important is it? You are very often seen to be the face of the rise of Mizoram football. And I've personally seen when I've been to Aizawl, of course, you are the face, but there are so many people involved in the Mizoram Football Association. There are other stakeholders who play their part. The government has played its part. How important has it been that you all together have really clubbed in, chipped in, and tried to grow Mizoram football?
Exactly. I mean, what you have said is correct because, I have always been the face of Mizoram football, but I am not Mizoram football because, they are my colleagues who do not show their faces in the public or in the media. but who worked, around the clock, who helped me a lot, who helped the Mizoram Football Association grow. There are people who work a lot, harder than me, but who did not get a chance to, expose themselves in the media. But this is a teamwork. The Mizoram Football Association, and under that we have the District Football Association and the Zone Football Association, and of course the Mizoram Premier League clubs. They work a lot, they spend a lot, they sacrifice a lot for the growth of football at various levels. And yes, you mentioned about the government, the Mizoram government, present government and the previous government. They have done a lot when it comes to promotion of football infrastructure. And I could proudly say that we have a government who is pro football. The two governments, the previous government and the government in power now. So that way, it helps a lot. Many of my colleagues in the All India Football Federation, they do not have this kind of luxury when it comes to support from the government. So we are very very fortunate. So it's a teamwork. In order to grow, in Indian football, not only that we need an investor, we need the government backup. You need a strong team who will help you. Who will do the nitty gritty, who will do all the dirty works. That way, I will say that I'm very blessed to have this kind of people around me. And yes, this is Mizoram Football Association. It doesn't center around me also. This is all a teamwork.
And that's very important, I think, to get across to a lot of people across India that there is really that bonding in Mizoram. Really, I think that's also a strength of the Mizos when it comes to the topic of football. That has enabled the growth. Now we often talk about the Mizoram Premier League and its success and helping in the growth of football in Mizoram. But how important is your grassroots program, your youth development program? You've got your Tata Center of Excellence over there. You started working on women's football, the growth of women's football. Now even women's footballers are coming up at the national stage, are representing India at different levels. How important has that been, really? That the overall growth we very often see in a lot of states, there's a focus on the senior game, on club football, but the rest is sort of forgotten. How important has that growth been?
See, Arun, honestly speaking, the past couple of years we did not have the best of results when it comes to national, competitions. It was, yeah, I mean, we can blame the COVID for that because 2 years of league football, it really, it really affected the growth of football in Mizoram. But having said all this, we invested heavily on the youth football, especially in the past 5 years. Youth football, grassroots football, women's football, these are the areas in which we concentrated because we already started the Mizoram Premier League. It will go on. It will go on. And maybe if we could improve it, nothing like it. But even if we could not improve it, we do not want to kind of, drop down the level. So if we could, sustain whatever we had started as far as the league structure is concerned, and we are happy with it. So if we can improve it, nothing like it. But if we can't, also we want to maintain the standard. That's number one. Number two is like now we wanted to invest heavily in youth football in the grassroots, and we along with the Reliance Foundation also we started one of the I will say that most extensive uh, children's league in the country in which our children from the age of 5 up to 12 13 they are going to play a minimum of 30 league matches in a season. So you do not find this in you may not find this in the other states in India. This is a pilot project run in collaboration with the Reliance Foundation. So apart from that, the Mizoram government is also spending heavily with the Tata Trust, and and of course Mizoram Football Association is one of the partners in which they open, if I remember it correctly, 60 centers across the state, grassroots. So there's a competition organized amongst the grassroots academies. That way we are investing heavily in the grassroots in the youth development because players if they have to excel at the highest level they need to have a proper training when they are young, which is missing in most of the Indian football setup. In order to grow, we in India maybe sometimes we may hit the 100 ranking at FIFA, but to be consistently in the 80s and in the 70s, we need more robust, grassroots structure. Otherwise, one or two good seasons, we may be able to be in the 90s. But to regularly break that and get into the 80s and in the 70s, we have to start young. We have to catch them young.
And that's a very, very important message. Catch them young. Another side, of course, is when you talk about grassroots youth football, but also seniors football, is coaching. And how important has that been to develop coaches with proper licenses across Mizoram?
One of the drawbacks we have in Mizoram football is that we do not have enough of licensed coaches. So the past 2 years, I mean that is the post COVID, you know, we invested heavily in the coach education because without good teacher you can't have good student. They we always say that we have the talent, but talent itself is not enough because Indian football is growing. So for that, yeah, you need to have more licensed coaches, not only licensed coaches but licensed coaches who are willing to work. This is what I found. I mean, with all my experience in Indian football, what I found out is that there are lots of licensed coaches who who are, I will say that, who are begging to be a part of the license course, who want to do the course, but who are, who do not, I will say that, who do not, who are not always ready to work at the ground level. So we don't need coaches who want the licenses, but we want coaches who are willing to work. That way, we are kind of restructuring our coach education system in Mizoram also, because there were lots of coaches who wanted to do the course, but were not available when it comes to coaching at the grassroots and at the ground level, especially the villages. Sometimes they are reluctant to go to the villages and teach the younger, uh, the people in that area. That way, we say that, and we ask them to kind of sign a willingness that I'll be able to, I will, let's say, work together with Mizoram Football Association for the growth of youth football. I'm ready to go to place where Mizoram Football Association is sending me. That way, we are we have them under our control now, under our radar, because previously there were coaches who come and go, who just came for the course, got the license, but not available. So that way we wanted to make the maximum out of these courses.
And that's a very, very important step. And while talking about coaching, I would love to talk about our links that we've had now for over a decade. It started with coaching, with a certain Lutz Pfannenstiel, amongst other people, going in the name of the German Football Association to Mizoram in 2012. I remember Lutz was really enthusiased when he came back from Mizoram, and it was, again, he was in Kolkata, he was in Mumbai as well, but he was talking mostly about Mizoram. How important was that in 2012 that someone like Lutz came over as the first foreign coach to Mizoram to give a basic coaching education course for the coaches of Mizoram then?
See, Lutz Pfannenstiel, he is, I will say that he's a gem. Good personality, uh, good background, huge experience, and you can even claim him that one of the most experienced players ever to have lived in this earth, because he played in all the continents, all the confederations that way. So Lutz, he came to Mizoram along with Felix Sim, who were both
Yeah.
UEFA licensed coaches. These are the coaches who train our first batch of Mizoram Premier League coaches. That way, they have played a vital role, because it gives them confidence, it gives them basic knowledge, and the coaches in the Mizoram Premier League, when they start in 2012, also in fact, we made it mandatory that all the coaches who are to be in the league, they had to undergo that training under Lutz and Felix Sim. They were both sent by DFB, the German Football Federation. So they with that kind of confidence that I train under the best coaches from Germany at the time. They were the world champions that way. So it helped a lot. It built confidence, and yes, I mean, it gave them the basic information about the do's and don'ts in the world of coaching. So a huge experienced coaches came to Mizoram and helped start of the Mizoram Premier League.
And that gave us another opportunity because Lutz, while working for the DFB, was also working for a club called Hoffenheim. And Lutz and I had a crazy idea of saying, hey, why not postseason 2014 before the World Cup? Let's send Hoffenheim to India. I remember I spoke to you. You were immediately the one who said yes. Other people turned the offer down to host Hoffenheim across India. Um, it was one crazy night in Aizawl in June of in May of 2014. What was that for you? How important was that also for Mizoram football, for the fans of football in Mizoram?
It was more than a dream, to host a proper, Bundesliga team in a tiny state of Mizoram. That was beyond our wildest, imaginations, because Mizoram, such a tiny state in the northeast corner of India, hosting a proper Bundesliga team, to get the under 20s, or even the under 18s of the Bundesliga team, to not to mention Mizoram, to India, is a challenge. But to bring the proper team with all the Firminos, and all these players, the Nikas Sule, Becks, and all this, who played at the highest level in the world football, they came to Mizoram. I will say that, it was one of the most, I will say that, awaited. It was one of the most awaited event in the history of Mizoram, if not the most awaited. And it was one of the most successful ever. I'm not talking about football event, any event in Mizoram. The crowd, you have experienced it, the buzz, and the fright also, because it was full house, all the all the gate crash. Everybody wanted to be a part of it. They wanted to have a glimpse of the German footballers. They wanted to touch the shot, have a feel about, are they really human, or are they robots who are coming here to Mizoram? That way, that feeling, you can't rewind it, you can't recreate it, because there's always a first time for everything. That first time, the first ever European club to come to Mizoram, I don't know when we're going to have the next one. So that way, it was it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. It was one of those things that I can personally say I will cherish for the rest of my life. That experience of that night in Aizawl
And of course,
at
the
the
credit
at the
goes to
Lamwal.
you. The credit goes to you. The amount of emails which we exchange. You remember, to get the permission, the
Yeah.
UEFA, to convince the AIFF, to get the Duderson deal, to get the flights into Mizoram, and the hotel. Everything has to be arranged for the first time. You were talking about, they need a massage table, and we did not have massage table that time.
Yeah, I know.
Ice bath. No, we did not have any shower in a dressing room for them. The top European professionals to come to a dressing room without a shower. That way, everything was like, yeah. I mean, you can't recreate that situation. It's unbelievable.
And I think important was around the match also a lot of learnings for the Mizoram Football Association, which I guess helped you in the long term. Now you have the Rajiv Gandhi Stadium. You regularly host I League matches for Aizawl FC. Other teams have played in the second division as well. How's that growth happened? That Aizawl FC has been champion of the I League as well. That Mizoram football has not only a saying when it comes to when we talk about talent, but also has a stake at the national level at club football.
I mean, see, if you look back the history of Mizoram Premier League, it started in 2012, and we already hosted the Bundesliga team in 2014. Organization wise, we've learned a lot from Hoffenheim, and our experience also helped us a lot, in the growth of Mizoram football. And yes, of course, ISL FC winning the I League in 2017, and the recent, I mean, the success story. If you look back, 2012 Mizoram Premier League, 2014 we could not forget the Santos Trophy win of 2014,
Mhm.
and we could not forget that. And there's also one major prize, which is national games men's gold medal in football.
Mhm.
That again in 2015. followed by ISL FC's triumph in the I League in 2017. It came within 5 years. Everything started and it all happened during that 5 years. I will say that it was one of the most cherished 5 years in Mizoram football. And yes, I mean all this, starting from Lutz to Hoffenheim, experience. You are playing against the best opponents that help you, in getting more experience. And yes, of course, ISL FC qualifying for the I League for the first time, and they did not do very well in the first season, but they had a very successful comeback later on. So that way, all this happened within 5 years. Those golden 5 years, it really changed the whole scenario of Mizoram football.
And that's, I think, great to see. Um, Again, we've had other events, but I come now more to your national role. You've now been part of the AFF Exco. You are now the head of the league committee. I will not go into details on what all happened last year with all the problems that were going on around the FIFA ban, but I'd rather look at how has your time been as being part of the AFF Exco as a member and as someone who's now a key member of that AFF Exco.
See, now I'm the second term of the All India Football Federation now. With the new constitution in place, all my older colleagues, they were not eligible to contest for this election. So that's why at a young age of 45, I now become the most senior member of the All India Football Federation. Having said all this, it's a challenge for me also, because now I am heading the league committee, which I will say that it's not because I'm the head of the league committee, but I will say that it is one of the most important committees in any football federation. League is always the benchmark. National team and league is always the benchmark. That way, we are working a lot for the improvement of the league. Uh, some people may like it, some people may not like it. So we have done away with the foreign players quota at the second division, because we feel that we don't have enough of strike power in Indian football in it, because all the vital position in the Indian national, not only in the I League and the ISL, even in the second division league back then, it was all occupied by foreigners. Striker, the centre back, or you name it, a centre defender, or the playmaker role as a number 10. These are all occupied by foreigners. So if all these positions are occupied by the foreigners, how can you mold your own footballer? So that way, we felt that if we could not do away with this in the top leagues, the ISL and the I League, but why not? We try out in the second division. That way we started this. And yeah, I mean, we wanted to kind of improve the Indian women's league also. What we are doing this season, we know the timing is not right. The fixtures did not help also, but we are looking for a new format of IWL from starting from next season, which will be more professionally run. And also the way we look at the youth league is also different now, because we wanted to really improve the youth structure, so that we can have more kind of a structured league in which you have the proper and 18 and the 15 that way. So and also what is very very important this season is that the champions of the I League promoted to the ISL. So, that way we are going to have a league which is all joined together. You know that way Indian football is slowly changing. I hope that this is for good. There will be lots of challenges in the future also, and there will be people who do not like uh, us or the AIFF doing away with the foreign players quota and minimizing, the players quota in to five from next season in the I League. But what we feel is that yes, you need a strong opponent, you need strong teammate to play with, good foreigners, but the amount of money spent to recruit the foreigners and the amount of money spent for Indian players is like the gap is too huge. That also we need to kind of gap it. I mean, narrow the gap. That way, we are
Mhm.
working on this. I mean, there are lots of changes which is on the pipeline, but you can't change everything all of a sudden. It takes time also. So we are hopefully hopefully we'll be able to improve the league structure in the next couple of seasons.
You spoke about a lot of things. Let me start with the foreigners as one, because there's a lot of discussion going on that topic. There's already been one, again, at local leagues. They've said that there should be no foreigners. An exception has already been made for the Kerala Super League, which is coming, which is, of course, going to be a state copy of the Indian Super League. There has been a meeting between Kalyan Chaube and the IFA in Kolkata, where I think the IFA is talking to the president as well as to the secretary in regard to opportunities regarding the Calcutta Football League, regarding Premier Division A and B, even though they generally welcome it. But people are saying, listen, the foreigners are the sort of the added value of why sponsors or TV channels are willing to broadcast leagues. And we're talking about the bigger leagues in India. It is Kolkata, it is Kerala, it is to some extent now Bangalore has been quite strong with its super division as well, Goa as well. How do you put this together? Because there's this interest, general interest. I think the Mizoram Premier League can do without foreigners. You rarely have outstation players in your league, but there are other leagues, again, especially Kolkata, Kerala, who are huge leagues, and the foreigners are sort of that special added element.
You're right. I mean, there are two ways to look into it. From the football perspective, from the Indian football perspective, to grow, in order to grow, you need to have more game time. Our local players are generally do not match with the foreigners when it comes to power, when it comes to skill, when it comes to, the whole, football education. So many of our players who plays in those positions as a striker, as a center midfielder, center defender, they do not get the game time which is required to mold them. That way, you are kind of depriving your players in your own league. But you are talking from the other angle that better foreigners, they are attracting sponsor and they're attracting crowd, and then they kind of improve the quality of the whole football. That also is something which we need to consider. But this is not kind of a permanent. I believe that kind of a ban of a foreigner in Indian football. But the executive committee of All India Football Federation decided that next season we are doing away with the foreigners at the even at the state league. This all happened because we feel that doing this, we are going to give more game time to the Indian footballers from the state level to the second division. But Kerala Premier League is one exception because they already had an agreement with the sponsor that a certain number of players, foreign players, needs to be registered. They already had that kind of an agreement, so we did not touch into that. And yeah, I mean, the other state leagues, I don't know. Maybe the president and secretary general we deal with this on case base. If it comes to the executive committee or the general body, then we will discuss about it.
Exactly. It's a huge discussion going on, I think. And I think there is, again, is there the right way or the wrong way? I think from an Indian football's perspective, from an Indian talent perspective, it's a huge opportunity if you're playing in Indian players only, because it also puts pressure on the Indian boys to take control of their own teams. I think that's a very, very important thing, because normally nowadays we see very often in the ISL, in the I League, that the spine is foreign. And that spine sort of is something, maybe we can create new talent. I think that's a great thing. You spoke about the IWL as well, and on one side, of course, it's great to see that 16 teams are playing this year in the IWL. But again, the kind of criticism that has come in, of course, it's happening in April, May, in Ahmedabad, in hot conditions. The difference of standards is quite visible. Gokulam Kerala, amongst others, scoring 14 goals against Kahani FC. Is the growth of women's football, might it be better to have a smaller and more compact league but of higher quality compared to that, and then create a second tier or maybe even a third tier as you have in the men's game?
See, that is on the pipeline. Next season we are going to have we are going to have a first division and a second division kind of a league where you have only the top quality players playing in the IWL, the proper IWL setup, and we have a second tier. That way we're going to differentiate between the players and the teams now. But having said this, IWL, yeah, I mean, in Indian women's football, the professionalism is not, I mean, still not there in many of the states. So that way, there are some clubs who already invested heavily in women's football, and since there are not many clubs who invested heavily in Indian women's football, so they have the luxury of picking the best Indian players. So you have one or two teams who pick the best Indian players, and we do not have many. We don't have a big talent pool to pick from. That way, if one team is serious enough about the competition and pick all the good players, then definitely there's going to be a huge gap between the clubs in the same division. This is exactly what is happening now in Indian women's football. But having said all this, hopefully we are going to have a change. I mean, big change in the next season. Then see. I mean, what the future holds. But definitely we are trying to improve this. Not only the standard of women's football, but yeah, calendar. This is one thing we need to
Mm.
work on. This season, we started very late because of the election, because of what is happening in the Santos Trophy, the women's, no, not the National Women's Football Championship, the IWL, everything we need to, club it together within a short duration. So we do not have a, calendar which is long enough to kind of include all this in our calendar. But since from next season, we are going to have a better plan. In fact, we already discussed about this in the last meeting. Not only in the women's league, even in the second division, the Santos Trophy, the I League, the ISL, of course. So we are going to structure all this so that we can have a proper planning from pre-season.
And that's very good. I think every Indian football fan will be happy to hear this. Coming to a decision that has been taken is to have again corporate teams able to bid for an I League spot, but also for an IWL spot. And this corporate bidding, of course, we talk about the example of Bangalore FC, which is the most successful example of a corporate team coming into Indian club football. But on the other sides, there have been teams like Kalyani Bharat, who've come in and gone within a period of less than a year. How do you see corporate teams sort of helping the growth, the expansion of the I League and also of the IWL, and on the other side, of course, also bringing in much needed cash into the AFF system?
See, personally, I'm not a fan of corporate entry. I always want, I always want, promotion on merit. But this is Indian football, not a kind of mature, European footballing
Mm.
state or country where you have all the structure ready. But Indian football, we are. It's like uh, we 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 are still, start. I mean, we are just about to start everything, I will say, because Indian Super League is not even at 10 years old. That way, we need to work on this. So, Indian football structure at this moment, we still need this kind of a corporate entry with a bigger investment. If you look at the recent history of I League, the champions this season is Roundless Punjab, and the season before that was Gokulam. That way, they're all corporate entry. Srinidhi, they are doing very well. They are up there with the best of the Indian clubs. If you look at the recently concluded Hero Super Cup, so that way corporate entry, you like it or not, uh, in Indian football setup at the moment we still need it because we need people with deep pockets, people who are ready to invest in Indian football. And they may not be a kind of a proper football fan who will say that, I will invest in the second division team and climb up the ladder. Maybe from the state league, we are starting this. 10 years, we have a plan that way. But our clubs, with the deep pockets, with the corporate backup, they always have that kind of a shortcut. You mentioned about the Bangalore success story that way. When people see this, and if they have the money, I want to do the same. Can I do this? That way, Indian football need people with deep pockets, people, with bigger financial backup. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned about Bharat. They came for one season and they disappeared after that. DSK Sivajians, maybe for different reason. but they were there for 2 or 3 seasons, but now they are not there anymore. That way, it always have this, I mean, merits and demerits. But yeah, in Indian football ecosystem, we still need corporate entry.
And I think it's if we like it or not. I mean, we most probably are from our thought process more of traditional football fans, but on the other side, the reality of Indian football is sometimes that we're not in a position to copy really what is done in Europe, and we'd rather have to look at what is being done in the US or in Australia or in other parts of Asia. So I think that's also a reality which maybe some fans will not want to accept, but that we will have to accept. Right? That's another one of those.
Yeah, I mean, we have to understand the Indian football ecosystem, because this is a country which you know which do not, I will say, that understand football in its totality as of now. Because the football culture, the fan culture, the way it started, the community backup of the club, that way maybe certain states like West Bengal, Goa, Kerala, they may be able to understand more about Indian football. But there are other states who are yet to, I will say that, follow the proper world football ecosystem. That way, we just cannot say that we cannot copy paste whatever happened in Europe, because those are footballing countries. We are a cricket country where we are struggling every day, to compete with cricket and other sports. But you go to Europe and some other countries where football is the number one, where you have the ready investors, where you have people coming into the ground, where you have fans, eager to pay money for their clubs. That way, we are still, we are still behind all these countries. So we have to understand that we live in India.
And that's a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge. I'm gonna put you into the spot now. When we come to Mizo talent, I have seen over the last 2.5 decades, starting with Mama, with Shiloh Malswang Tulunga. I then remember watching Chota Mama with the youth teams, an
Yeah,
exceptional talent who sadly didn't make it to the top. Then, of course, we had JJ and Dika. We've now have Changte, who is Lalnghinglova Changte, who had an exceptional season for Mumbai City, showing finally what talent he is. I remember, you might also remember, he was there when we were there with the German student national team. He came over with JJ, the young,
yeah.
very, very shy boy. Great to see where he's come since then, right? And on the other side, Apuya. I'm going to put you on the spot. Who's your most favorite Mizo footballer?
The present or the past.
In general, who would, if you, I've given you some names, you can choose other names as well. Who would you say has been your personal favorite so far in that you've seen of Mizo footballers?
You did not. I mean, you missed out one exceptional talent in the name of Malsom fella.
Oh, sorry, Matson Fela as well. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
another one. Yeah,
I
again,
mean,
it's a short list, but
he,
again, we could
yeah,
expand it. Yeah? We have the
I mean,
Jerry's, we have this, we have that.
he is one of the most talented Indian players I've ever seen. I'm sorry to say that he's a kind of a wasted talent, because he did not make it to the top level. Sub juniors, juniors scored lots. He scored for fun for India. US tour. If you
Mm.
look back, the number of goals he scored. Even for Pailaneros, he started, but because of many reasons, I will say that he did not make it to the list. But yeah, I mean, I put him one of the best Indian strikers when it comes to talent. Then yeah, I mean, of course, I mean, we cannot
I,
ignore
I
JJ
just
also.
I just come up with another one, but that was a decade earlier, Lalampuya. A similar
Yeah,
story,
yeah.
sadly. Exceptional boy. I
Yes.
remember Ranjan Chaudhuri used to rate him very highly, him and Vimal Pariyar. I remember them tearing apart defenses for Tata Football Academy here in Germany. And yeah,
He,
sadly,
he
also did
played
not
he,
make the
he,
cut.
he played very well against FC Cologne.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
no, no. That was Chota Mama. That was
Oh, that's Chotra Mama. Okay, okay.
Lalampuya was the next generation. He was the 2004 batch of TFA.
All right, all right. Yeah, yeah.
So he came
All
out
right.
in 2006, went to Mohun Bagan. But again, we've had these stories. But again, yeah, sorry, I stopped you.
Yeah. I mean, brilliant example for Mizo kids, all Indian kids, is JJ Lalpeklua. He's not the most talented not to mention Indian players. Even amongst the Mizo, he was never as talented as the other, famous Mizo players. But this is sheer hard work and dedication. He is so hardworking. He worked so hard that he became the fourth all-time, you know, top scorers in Indian football, and he was the AIFF Player of the Year. He won the I League. He won the ISL Emerging Player of the Year. That way, he won everything which an Indian footballers can win as as an individual, as a team also. So, but he never was the most talented among the Mizos also. But he had made all this because of his sheer hard work sheer hard work and dedication. He's a fighter, so I rate him very highly.
Lovely. I Before I come to questions
I
that
know
people have asked, yeah,
talent wise, you cannot miss out Dika,
one
that
of my
left foot,
favorites,
that left
Lalnghinglova
foot.
Tetea, that left foot. And again, I used to remember training at Mumbai City, where most of his shots against Shubroto Pal used to go in. And that was really a battle to watch. And that left foot, and again, he used to get praises from Freddie Ljungberg, from Nicholas Anelka, for the sheer quality that left foot his decided derbies in Kolkata for East Bengal against Mohun Bagan.
Yeah.
One of those favorite memories, of course, for many East Bengal fans will be when he took off his shirt after scoring a long ranger. So of course there has been great Mizo talent. Again, the next generation is already there, or the next generations are there in the under 17 World Cup squad, or under 17 World Cup squad. I'm saying under 17 squad going into the Asian Cup. So therefore the next generation is coming up. So that's great. I wanted to talk a little bit about the private man, Tetea Hmar. You spend so much of time on football. You are, again, we belong to a breed of people who are football crazy, I would say. What does your wife, what do your daughters say? Are you spending enough time with them?
See, I mean, you're right because you know me inside out. It's difficult. If you dedicate your time for football, then you don't have enough time for your family. But having said this, when I'm in Mizoram, in my city in Aizo, one of the first thing which I do in getting up in the morning is that dropping my two daughters to the school, because I've been away for so many time. So as long as I'm in Mizoram, and I do not have any important, quote unquote important engagement, all the not so important engagement, I will say that I don't have time for that because I need to drop my kids to the school. That is the kind of dedication which I can give to my kids. I mean, my wife also, but she's very supportive. She never complained because she knows that I'm for a cause, because I'm here for the cause of Mizoram football, and Mizoram youth, and the players who did not have enough of guidance back then. Now they are in the limelight of Indian football. But now, yeah, I cannot only talk about Mizoram, because I've been fortunate to be a part of the All India Football Federation setup. So we need to dedicate more time for the IFF course also. That way, yeah, I mean, it's always a challenge. You have to look after your family, and football is always there. So I don't want to kind of have a competition between your family and your football. Which one is first? Which second? I don't want. I don't want to comment on
So
that.
you
But
have two families, right? Your family at home, and you have football as another family.
you're right, exactly. But I do not want to have a kind of any kind of a I do not want to put any weightage between the two.
I come to the Twitter questions, and we've had some very interesting ones, and I pick some of them. I take the most controversial one as the first one, which has come from Abhishek Kundu, who asks, "Why didn't you apply to be the AFF president when last year potentially the opportunity was there?"
See, I mean, to become the IFF president, you need to be someone who is, I will say, that strong enough to put, strong enough voice to be heard at the national level, and especially at the union government. That way, I feel that I'm not the right person to lead the All India Football Federation at the moment, because my voice is not strong enough at the union government level.
All right. Honest answer, as always, from you. Some of the next questions are sort of interlinked in regard to the structure of Indian football. And I'll take the first question from Football Say. Um, you've answered it to some extent, but maybe we can go a little bit more into depth into it. How will the league structure be for women's football and I League, second division, and league youth leagues from next season? You explained the women's, I guess you're going to have two tiers. How are you going to try and structure the second division league, and what's the plan in regard to the elite divisions? How many divisions will you have? How many youth divisions will there be?
See, we have all that in writing. I mean, the AIFF League Committee, when we met last, there was a presentation about this. The structure is already there. It's written in black and white. So I do not want to talk much about it because I do not have that. I mean
The
that
liberty the liberty to speak about it yet.
not the liberty. Since I do not
Okay.
have the soft copy or the hard copy of that
Okay. Okay.
presentation which was given on in the last meeting. So whatever presentation which was already kind of agreed, it's there in black and white. It's there for everybody to see. When the secretariat feels that it's the right time to kind of put it
Mm-hmm.
out for the public, then it's for everybody to see.
All right. Ashutosh Pense has a question. How big of a job is it to standardize the leak system at national level? That's a big job, right?
Oh yes, it's a big job, and I mean, I need to go back to what I said at the beginning. It's all a teamwork because I'm not doing this because I am the chairperson of the league committee. We have a very, I will say that hardworking and cooperative league committee members who are willing to help. We have the league department in the AIFF. We have the secretary general who is always there. We have other people, the senior personnel, the professionals in the AIFF who looks after all this. So for us, we are taking the decision. Whatever decision we have taken in the committee meeting, the execution is done by the people working there professionally at the secretariat.
All right. Also linking to this is a question from Shubham who asks, what is the ideal Indian Football League structure according to him for both men and women, and how long will it take for the AFF to achieve that? Again, somehow linked to the earlier questions, the
Yeah.
league structure. I think that's a big question that a lot of football fans have.
See, my ideal league structure is always like, we need to have a top league, which we all have now. Because previously there were I League and the ISL, and we never know, which one is the top league and which one is the second tier. Now we have ISL as the top tier, I League as the second division. Then the third division or the third tier is the second, the so-called second division league now. I want to rename this because second division, it's no more a second division. It's just second division of I League, not of the Indian football. So
Hmm.
it's practically third division. So what I feel is that from my part, I wish we can have 20 teams in the ISL, a minimum of 20 teams in the ISL. Then I League same number of team, if not more. Then second division it has to be more because the present second division, the third tier, where that should be linked to the state leagues. So we have all the state leagues, the champions, maybe the champions and the runner-up of all the state leagues going into the kind of second division where you have at least a minimum of uh, 10 teams divided into maybe 10 zones, that way, you know, your state league, promotion relegation, promoted to the now existing second division, which is the third tier, then to the second tier, which is the I League. So there has to be that kind of a structure, the now the existing structure is not up to the mark. That is what I can comment. We are trying to improve it, and I mean there are some areas which are beyond our beyond our control also. That way, lots of things are happening in Indian football, and lots of changes happening in Indian football. I hope these changes are for the good of Indian football only. But yes, ideally, I would like to have a minimum of 20 teams at the top tier, the same number of teams at the second tier, third division with more number of teams. Then the fourth tier should be the state league, where you need to have.
Yeah,
So
I just wanted to add, because you've talked about this 4 tier system. Don't you think maybe there should be a middle step between the second division, the current second division or third tier of Indian football, and the state league? That there maybe should be something sort of a regional league, maybe in between, so that you have sort of 3 tier national level, a regional level, and then go to the state level. Maybe might that be an option? Because you were talking about having sort of many teams from across the states coming in. That maybe that way you have a more defined sort of pyramid of club football in India.
see, there are I mean, there are states who have a more, I will say that, more popular district leagues and the city leagues and the state leagues. That we have to consider also. You talk about the Kolkata League, maybe a certain Mumbai League in Maharashtra, and then I've heard that lots of footballs happening in Kolhapur and that region. Maybe the champions of the districts leagues in Indo, or the city leagues in such states play against each other. To have a kind of a qualifiers within their own state. So so that we can have that. I mean, the league, the state league to the third tier of Indian football
Mm.
that way.
All right. About women's football, we spoke about. Then there is something which I found, it's a very interesting question, and that's the last of the Twitter question, which is from KRNK9. He asks, in a developing football nation like ours, why aren't we doing away with accreditations, club licensing, technical and coaching staff, etc., till teams reach I League? These requirements at lower levels only create barriers to entry rather than providing quality control measures.
I mean, you are right. You are technically talking about in business. There's a quote called ease of doing business. We need this ease of doing business in Indian football also. If you look at the present, the present criterias and the do's and don'ts of the Indian football at the youth level and at the academy level, this is much more, easy to achieve than it was 2 years back or 3 years back. We are very, very lenient on this because we knew the kind of problems which we face at the ground level. We just cannot copy paste what is happening in Korea and Japan. But having said this, there are mandatory which you need to follow as member of the Asian Football Confederation, which we cannot compromise on. Apart from that, we are doing a level best so that we can have a kind of uh, you know uh, more easy kind of operations in the academies in the clubs level and the lower division, so that once they pass through the ladder and they climb up the ladder and reach the certain level of maybe the third tier or the second division now, or the I League, then we can have a more stringent kind of rules and regulations that way. We are working on that, and in fact we have done in so many changes in the in the rules and regulations and the criteria when it comes to academy and the lower division of club level.
So that's on one side a good development, but I think on also on the other side you need to have certain standards which you need to lay
Yes,
down. I think that's the
exactly.
other thing, and I think I know there are still people even 10 years down the road from when club licensing was introduced in the I League who say that it's not good. But I think the I League club licensing has led to a lot of things, especially on investment on youth, which most probably would not have happened. Um, a lot of these things, of course, are there when it comes to Indian football. Tete, when we final question from my side is for you is looking at Indian football, where Indian football stands today. A new AFF has come in last year. New people at the helm. They're trying to change things. They're trying to improve things. You're part of that. Where do you hope to see Indian football in the next 5 to 10 years?
I always believe that and a national federation is as good as its national team. So there may be changes at the secretariat level, there may be changes at the presidency, and there may be changes at the executive committee members. But if that changes, or if that so-called improvement or so-called reform is not reflected in the ranking of your national team, well, you cannot say that change is for good. So it's a huge challenge for all of us, because there are lots of changes happening in Indian football. But if our ranking remains the same or if it goes downwards, then these changes are not for good. But yeah, let let's hope that after 5 years, these changes will bring lots of improvement in with what is happening inside the ground. So in football, what is more important is what happens inside the ground. That way, it's a huge, huge challenge for all of us at the Indian football. I mean, All India Football Federation.
Tete, thank you so much for taking time to come on this candid football conversation and being honest as always, as you are, straightforward and trying to explain things. And to all our viewers, do subscribe to Sports Khabri and to Arun Foot. Do keep following these candid football conversations as we try to bring you insightful interviews and in-depth discussions on Indian football. And once more, Tete, thanks a lot for taking time out.
Pleasure is mine, Arun.
Thanks a lot, and see you all again very, very soon.
See you. Bye bye.